Hi guys, and welcome to my showcase and tutorial for Treasure Trails. Treasure Trails is a plugin that's been heavily inspired by old school Runescape, its treasure trail system. Basically what it is, for those unaware, is a scavenger hunt. So basically players will be given a clue scroll, and this clue scroll will give them a clue, or a puzzle that they need to solve. Upon completion of the puzzle, they're then awarded with another clue, which leads them to another puzzle that they need to solve, and so on and so forth, up until the total number of clue steps have been achieved, and the player is then given a reward casket for their efforts. The clue steps can be configured, and players can have as many number of these clues as they like. These can be given through command, they can be found in loot chests. Really the sky's the limit in terms of how you distribute them. But here's an example of what they look like. So when you open up a clue for the first time, it's going to give you a new step. You can see here we've got a picture of a map, and we need to move to the specified location and open the clue. So there are a number of different types of clues, or clue types, including worn item clues, which basically require you to wear certain items either in your worn inventory slots or in your belt when speaking to a certain NPC. There's map clues like this one here, and this is also considered what we call an image clue. There are anagram clues, which are basically anagrams of NPC names who you need to speak with. There's question clues, which require you to input an answer into the UI to get the next clue. There are also riddles, which are again sort of clues that require you to solve the riddle and speak with the respective NPC. And then there's coordinate clues, which require you to move to a specific XYZ position on the map to progress the clue. And then once the clue steps have been completed, you're given a reward casket. Okay, so we're going to solve this first clue step. So we're looking at this position here, and I can tell that this position is the water treatment plant. So a couple of defining features would be the specific road that goes around and curves in like a U shape, the two little dot points there, and this little dense tarred area or gravelled area there. So if we reference the map, you can see the U-shaped road, the little dense gravelled area, the two little bits and pieces here, and then the road kind of runs above it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the map again. We can see this is the road that runs above it, so chances are it is around this position here. Let's see if I get this correct. So if I open up the clue, we need to be next to the little, actually sorry, it's over here. Yeah, there it is. Yep, little road around it over the top there. So I believe it is inside of this location. Yeah, yep. So if we come in here and open up the clue again, we've found another clue, and we've now progressed the clue. So now it's asking us to complete a coordinate clue. So we can see here our current position is right here, so our X, Y, and Z position. So we basically need to navigate to these location here. So you can see the elevation is slightly lowered. So the elevation is slightly lowered from 32 down to 18. So we're in a position that's higher above it. But basically, this one is just a simple matter of print pause and try to find the right direction to go. I've also got an admin command in here, so you can do tt.show coordinates. This will give you an example of all the positions that it can spawn in. So it's quite a number of positions. So basically the rule of thumb with these position spawns, and you'll see here when I can run the command over here. So if I go tt.show the coordinates, it's only spawning along the roadside and inside monuments. And it's only showing you the ones that are within 100 range of me running the command, otherwise your client would just lag. But basically it's showing where positions where players can't build entities. And it is forgiving. I think it's within 5 meters by default. So if you open the position up within 5 meters, it'll verify that it's completed. But just for the sense of time, I'm going to skip this one by typing in tt.next. Oh, and that was quite a short treasure trail, so we've already solved this one. So the clue steps can vary between 2 to 6, depending on a couple of factors, basically depending on what you put into the configuration. So our next clue we could generate might have multiple longer clue steps, or more clue steps for the player to have to solve in order to get their reward casket. But if I click on the reward casket and open it up, You can see I've been given some items. Now the items that you can receive are obviously your standard in-game Rust items. You can add custom items in here as well. You can add economics and server reward points in here as well, and just add like a picture that represents them. And you can differentiate how much of each item is given, so from a lower and an upper value. So you can see here I got quite a lot of sulfur, some stone, some rockets. You can make these things unique, and you can have commands also run on these as well. For instance, if you wanted to have an item perks item generated and given to the player, you can do that. Yeah, so to give a command, so to give a clue for testing, we've got a command called tt.giveClueNew, or tt.giveClue and then your name. So you can see I've been given a fresh clue. So you can see we've got a worn items clue here called Speak with Sherlock, with the following items equipped or on your belt. So we need a burlap shirt, a bucket helmet, and a Python revolver. Now, if you haven't explored the map and you aren't sure where the NPCs are, and if you have administrative privileges, you can do tt.show NPCs, and this will show you where each of them are. So again, this is an administrative command, so players won't be able to see this, but I know for a fact that Sherlock is at the bandit camp. Now you can change the positions of where these NPCs are, and you can even create your own NPCs as well. I will show you how to do that a little bit later. But you can see here we've got Sherlock and Watson. Now if I talk to Sherlock now with what I've got on, it's going to say I'm missing some items. So we need a burlap shirt, a bucket helmet, and a Python revolver. So Python revolver, burlap shirt, and a bucket helm. So if I pop both of these on, now if I keep the revolver out, he's still going to say it's not quite right, because I don't have the Python in the belt. If I do it now, let's progress to the next clue. So another map coordinate clue, so I'm going to just skip that one. You can see wooden armor, older Morn introduces, so the introducer since the Morn, in forest gear of timber true. So this is a what do you call it, a riddle. This is a riddle clue. So all the answers to the riddles are pretty much in the config already, so let me just go find out what that one is. Okay, so the answer to this one is an NPC called Stamford. So we'll just look at NPCs again, look for Stamford. Looks like Stamford is in the train yard. So we'll go for a fly over here and have a quick chat with him, and he should give us another clue to solve. Or potentially a reward casket, depending on how many steps this clue has. So we've got Stamford here, we walk up and we just talk to him. We've found a reward casket. Okay, so we've got the reward casket there. So again, I can open up and there's my loot. So you can set how many rolls, like a minimum and maximum number for how many rolls of loot the table's going to give, as well as the minimum and maximum values for each item that the player receives, or each reward that the player receives. So if I run this again, yeah, I'll generate some more clues and we'll see if we can sort of cycle through each of the clue types, and I'll show you how they'll work. Okay, so here's an example of a question clue. So a question clue is a clue that requires the player to input an answer based on the question. You can create any number of these in the config as well with your own questions, as well as answers that you're willing to accept. So for instance, what armored vehicle drives around the road and must be destroyed for loot? There could be some answers like APC or Bradley or tank. We could enter the answer and off we go. But you can enter multiple, like I said, multiple answers if players interpret names differently. You can cover kind of multiple bases with that. Okay, so here's an example of an anagram clue. So we can see here it's basically a jumble of words. So the first word is jumbled and the second word is jumbled. So the first word is basically an anagram for visit, and the second one is an anagram for Mycroft. So if we do tt.show NPCs, look for Mycroft wherever he might be. There he is. He's the guy in the satellites. So if we fly over to him, have a quick chat, and he confirms our suspicion. Okay, so yeah, that's all of the clue types I've covered. So I've covered one items, which are basically clues that require players to wear and equip specific items and talk to an NPC. Map clues are basically image clues, which show you an image of a particular location. It could be a map representation, or it also could be like an image that kind of looks, for example, like here with a little X showing the player where they need to go. So they need to kind of identify the surrounding areas to work out where they need to open the clue up. The anagram clues, which are obviously just a jumble of one or two words for an NPC they need to speak with. Question clues, which are simply question and answer style clues for progressing. Riddle clues, which are basically a riddle that describes an NPC. And then we have coordinate clues, which are kind of just tell the player to go to a specific position. Now we can limit the amount of coordinates that clues can spawn with, which I'll show you in the configuration later. So if you don't want 5,000 different locations that a player can go to, you can say limit it down to 20. That way players can kind of work together and build a repository of potential coordinate locations, rather than having to work out where they are. They can simply note down and sort of recognize the XYZ positions and know exactly where to go, which is how it works in RuneScape there. So and obviously completing the amount of clue steps will solve the trail and reward the player with a casket. There is also permission-based overrides as well. So if you wanted to give VIPs less clue steps to solve when a clue is spawned for them, then you can do that. And these are also tradable, obviously, so players, the clue steps themselves are attached specifically to the clue scroll, so you can hand the scrolls to other players if you wanted to. So basically from this point, there's a lot of customization you can do. I'll give you a brief overview in game with how it all works, and then we'll jump into the configuration, which will kind of complete the piece of the puzzle that will be missing from this next step. But basically you have the ability to create your own NPCs, or even potentially reutilize NPCs if you want to. So if you've got NPCs that work as shop vendors or whatever with other plugins, you can potentially add those NPCs into this plugin and have them be part of it. So that's basically for the riddle, for the warn items, and for the anagram clues specifically. But if you wanted to add an NPC, there's a couple of ways to do it. The first way is to add the NPC at the location that you're at, regardless of what's around you. And this is useful for servers that have a long wipe, for example, like a monthly wipe with set locations. For example, you want him to be up here. If you want to add tt.add NPC Sherlock. Let me just grab the profile name 1 sec. No, that was right. It's case sensitive. So add NPC Sherlock. You can see Sherlock is now spawned at this location. Whereas if we wanted to have him relevant to a monument, for example, and this is where it gets kind of cool. You can say you want Sherlock to spawn at this particular location for this particular monument, regardless of the map spawn. So if this monument exists, Sherlock is going to spawn here. So we can say tt.add monument NPC Sherlock. So Sherlock, you can see added to the auto spawn fishing village C at this particular position, because this is the closest location for this for that. If I do tt.show map, so tt.map.show, map.position, sorry, my god, so many commands. We can see here that's the localized vector positions for that. Cool. Alright, so that's how you can add NPCs to monuments. This also works as a custom monument as well. So for instance, I've got a monument up here called Airship. So if we wanted to have the NPC spawn relative to the monument marker on the airship, we can do that as well. So if we wanted him to spawn, let's just say in the corner of the helipad here, we can say map for tt.add monuments NPC Sherlock. So it spawns, shows the position where he spawns. It doesn't show the localized position, that's his world position. But now he'll spawn, whenever he's associated with the actual airship monument now. So if this monument gets put into a map, Sherlock will automatically spawn at it. Yeah, so that's kind of how that works. And adding clues to the map, so adding your own custom map clues as well work the same way. So basically, when you're creating a map clue, what you generally do is let's just say for example, you wanted the player to dig in the middle of the H here. There's a couple ways to do it. The first way is you would look for, either do it as a map clue. So for example, little icon that looks like this without the text. You could go ahead and do it the map way, but the easier way would actually be to do it as like a what do you call it? A picture. So you could just say, go on a debug camera, turn all your other other plugin stuff off and take a picture of it. And then what you would do is you would upload that picture to like a Dropbox or somewhere that you can host it externally with like a little X on where you want them to dig. And then yeah, that player will dig that when they dig at that location, it'll work. You'll need to input the parameters around where they are as well, so relevant to the monument. So for example, if I use a tt.map.pos command, you can see the information is printed to my console. The monument prefab that you put into the config is the monument marker prefab, and the marker name you'd put specifically as airship, and this is case sensitive. For the vector 3 position, you just put this information here in, so the localized vector 3 position. So what this is basically it takes the monument marker's position and calculates and adjusts it based on where it is locally to this. So pretty straightforward. So we'll jump into the configuration and I'll show you kind of how customizable and kind of where what I've just showed you kind of ties in from a config level. Okay, so we're in the configuration now. So I'll take it line by line and we'll basically go through the entire thing. So we've got clue configuration up here, which can show you shows you where the background image is. This gets cached into server memory as well. So even if you change this value after the plugin's loaded, it won't change until the next time you wipe the server. But this basically just means that it's super fast when loading. It's effectively doing what Image Library does, but directly in the plugin. This is the clue item icon. So this is the icon I've created for the clue specifically, and this is what we call the clue when the player gets it. So we just leave it as lowercase. You don't need to do uppercase because the player, when it's displayed to the player, it's always in uppercase. So we've got the global clue settings. This is how many steps that the clue will go from and to. So when the clue rolls its data initially, it's going to check to see whether it's going to provide 4 or 6 clue steps, between 4 and 6 clue steps. So to be between either 4, 5, or 6. We also have a permission override value here as well, which will basically reduce that amount from 2 to 4 if the player has the treasuretrails.vip permission. And you can create any number of these permissions as you like. So if you wanted to set this to some scene number like 8 to 10 clue steps, and then set VIPs only have to complete 4 to 6. This will attach directly to the clue scroll as well, by the way. So if a VIP opens up a clue scroll for the first time, it's going to roll the maximum clue step and attach it to that clue. So if they give that player to someone who isn't a VIP, it's still going to have these values associated with it, because that's rolled when the clue is basically instantiated. The clue drop settings, so basically these are locations where you can drop the clues as just default loot, but if you're running things like alpha loot, you can add the clues in there as well. So create normal has a 1% a 1% chance. Create normal, like military crates have a 3%, elite crates a 7%. There's different types of drop rates out of 100. The drop chance from barrels, again 1 and 1 and 2 and 2. Pretty self-explanatory. Again, these values are all out of 100%. I might even add that in the description before I push the release, if I remember. Now we have the NPC settings. So this is kind of where you create your NPC profiles. So if you wanted to create and customize your own, or change the NPCs that I've shipping with the plugin directly, you can. But you can see how long should we show the NPCs. This is for the title settings. So when you see an NPC, it shows the name above the head. This is how long should the name appear for. It's just a performance thing. So it'll appear for 5 seconds, and then it'll look for players that are within 10 meters of the NPC to show them their name. The text color. This is the color of the text that appears above the the NPC's head. This is just hex code, and the text size. You can adjust that as you please. The NPCs here, so we can see here with this, we've got a number of NPCs: Sherlock, Watson, Moriarty, and basically these guys are used for 3 of the clue types. They're used for warn clues, anagram, and riddle clues. So you can see the name of the NPC is right here. So Sherlock, that's the profile name. It's also the NPC's name. The user ID of the player. This is simply for changing character models. So if you want different character models, you can set different values. This is representative of what a player user ID would be, which is how we all get our unique little characters. Items worn by the NPC. So you can see Sherlock wears a boonie hat, a hoodie, pants, and shoes and boots with these particular skins. And then the items in the NPC's belt, we don't have any there, but it's exactly the same sort of thing. You just do a short name and skin ID list in here if you wanted to add them. So, something like that if you wanted to do that. All these NPCs are pretty much set up the same. So Watson obviously, has his own clothing, and the distinct kind of differentiator is the name. So we'll just skip past all these NPCs. There's a number of them that get added, and these guys are already added and specific to certain monuments, which I'll show you below. So you can see monument NPC spawns. So we've got Bandit Town. Sherlock is going to spawn at this localized position here with this localized rotation. Since Bandit Town is a default monument, there's no custom marker name. We've got same for Bandit Town for Watson as well. So Watson is usually, obviously Sherlock's sidekick, so he also spawns in a similar location. We've got Harbour 1 and Harbour 2. So Harbour 1 has Longshore, which is just another NPC above, and Harbour 2 has Barnwick. So if Harbour 1 doesn't spawn on a map for whatever reason, then Longshore won't be considered as part of the clues. So if you've got an item, if you've got a warn clue or an anagram or a riddle that requires Longshore to be there, if he's not spawned in the map, then he won't appear in any clue steps. Gregson spawns at the outpost. More in the airfield, blah blah blah. You can see all the different NPCs spawning at different locations. Now if we look at Sherlock again, these are the ones I've added relative. So you can see here that we've created one for Fishing Village C. This is the relative position that Sherlock will spawn in at location. And we can also see the custom monument one I added as well. So monument marker, the custom marker name was Airship. So when the plugin looks for the custom monument, it's going to look for this particular one, find its XYZ position, and then find this position locally to that. So again, that's a long-winded way of saying it supports custom monuments. So clue type settings. So I've got the different weights. So how often these clues will kind of appear. I recommend setting the coordinate clue to the lower amount because it's not as fun to do as the other ones. You can even disable it by setting it to 0 if you don't want it to be considered at all. But yeah, this is kind of what this works. And the way, if you're unfamiliar with drop weights, basically how it works is it adds all of these numbers up together, rolls a random number between 1 and the total sum of these numbers, and then cycles through to check to see if, it's almost like a giant wheel to see if the number landed in between, 0 and this one, and this one and this one, this one and this one, to see which one it selects. So the higher the number, the higher probability that it's going to be selected as the type. It won't do back to back, so it won't do map clue to map clue. It'll do map clue, and then it'll pick something that isn't a map clue, and then it can consider map clue again once that other one's been completed. So it won't do back to back of the same type. We've got worn item clues. So these are basically just all the different types of clues that we can do. So we've got a lot of them. So there's 20, I think, that ship default with the plugin. So they're just basically different assortments of items. So hoodies, pants, rifle AK, hazmat suits, rifle bolt, so bolt action. These are the items that need to be worn when speaking to the NPC, and this is the NPC that we've nominated. So for all of these, we've selected Sherlock because, again, thematically correct in RuneScape, all of these worn clues generally get referred to Sherlock. But again, you can set whatever NPC you like. So if you want this particular one to require a different NPC to talk to, you can. And these drop weights work exactly the same. The higher the number, the more likely it is going to choose, a specific one. So if you wanted to make some, ultra rare one with a gun that's much harder to get, you could just do like hazmat suit and like LMG.M249. So it requires an M249 to complete if you wanted to do something like that. But yeah, it's entirely up to you. And to add them, it's just a simple matter of adding another entry into the dictionary and off you go. So that's how worn clues kind of work. Let me just close one on clues. Anagram clues are basically just mixtures of, speaking or different words. So this one here means visit. This one here is Moriarty, which is the one we saw in the game before. This one would be an anagram for speak. With is an even anagram. It's just the actual name, and then you got Watson. This is probably going to be Watson. Yeah, Watson here. So you can see this is the anagram, and this is the NPC that it's referring to. So you can change this to whatever you like. You can add your own. So you add your own custom NPCs. You can add your own anagrams to them. So yeah, master of your own destiny. Map clues. This is kind of where it gets a little bit more convoluted. So you can see here we've got the image that represents the icon, the image that we see on the clue. So, for instance, if I punch this into, let me just get a browser. If I punch this into my browser, this is the image that's going to appear. So it's basically a direct image relative to what it's showing. I'll show you another way of also doing it as well. So I scroll all the way down to the bottom images here. This actually grabs us a picture of how I've done it with pictures as opposed to maps as well. So as a player, you would kind of need to identify based on, the surroundings, what is this location? And to me, this kind of tells me that it's at train yard, at the stairwell that you need to ascend to go to the card rooms. So yeah, that's kind of how that works, and that's kind of the one I would generally recommend doing if you're not good with Photoshop, or if you've got custom monuments or things that don't have a map print based on topology. But yeah, basically taking the information that we took before. For instance, if we wanted to add a airship to this, we would upload the picture of the airship that we want. We would go, I don't know, airship, whatever. We would add our URL here / pic.png. So we'd add the picture here, and this is the direct link picture like we're doing with Dropbox. So if you're using Dropbox, make sure you change the =0 to =1. The map local position would be the important part. So generally what I recommend doing is copying the actual console printout. And if we punch this into a notepad, we can jump down to the bottom here. We can see this is the position. So we can just copy the positions over here. Nope, I'm in the wrong one. Hang on a sec. There we go. So if we can just copy the positions over here. So for example, we wanted him to spawn at 9.68. This was 30.49, and this one here was 13.4. Oh, sorry, 0.33. So that's kind of where he's going to spawn. The monument prefab itself, we would need to input what was in our console printout. So we need to change it to the monument marker because it's a custom monument. And we would need to set the custom marker name to airship. You need to be very mindful that you need to wrap this in quotation marks because it's a string. We could do maximum radius the player can be from X location. So if you want them to be able to do it from under or above, you can set whatever value you want. This is just simply the distance check to see if the player is within range. And then we can do the drop weight. So if we want this to be more common, we can have the drop weight as a high value. But that's kind of how the image kind of clues work. and that's how you can kind of add your own and create your own custom ones if you wanted to do that with custom monuments that you might run on your server. Question clues are very simple, so we can see here we've got the question, what monument has a green card puzzle and is located near the ocean? So the valid answer in this particular scenario is harbour, but if you find that your players are literal and they might say small harbour, or they might say large harbour, or maybe they're just terrible spellers like myself and they might go Harbour. You can add all those as valid answers. So if the thing sees any one of these, it's going to give it the thumbs up and say, yep, you got it right. You can see here what I've done with the rifle, like the AK. So assault rifle, AK, AK-47, rifle. So yeah, you can pretty much make as many questions and answers as you like, and again, all of these have the drop weight, so if you want certain questions to be more likely than others, you can tweak the drop weights if you want to. Riddle clues are again relevant to the NPCs, so you can see here, I deduce the truth from clues left behind. In a hoodie and pants you'll find me aligned, seek the detective with logic so keen. Clearly it's referring to Sherlock, so the player would go and speak to Sherlock. You can create any number of these riddles that go to the same NPC or different NPCs, and you can rewrite my ones to suit your own. Just bear in mind that you can't rewrite them on active clues. So once a clue's been active and it's got its first puzzle, that puzzle is associated directly with the clue itself, not with the config changes. A very key piece of information. Coordinate clues are basically they're cached on startup. So you can set, which I'll show you down below, you can set a limitation here, but you can set the drop weight for how often these clues are given, and the radius of the clue position. So this is how close the player needs to be to that clue position for it to verify as correct. So within 10 meters of the X position. Advanced clue settings, I've got question clue settings, so we can see the placeholder value that gets put into the question clue, which is answer ... We've got coordinate clue settings, so the maximum number of coordinates to store for a wipe. So basically we take a sample range based on this value, so limit would be 0, which means we'd take like 5,000 positions and store it. If you just wanted to say have 20 positions across the map, you could set this to 20 and it's only going to store and cache 20 positions. Sound settings are basically the sound effects that play, so you can see when a player opens a reward casket, this is what plays. This one here is for when they progress to the next stage of the clue. This one is when they're completing a clue trail, when they've actually completed a clue trail. This one is when they're opening a clue, and this is when they fail an NPC check. It's a little vibrate thing you're hearing before. If you want to turn any of these off, you just set the value to null, and that sound is now disabled. Reward settings, this is kind of where you configure the rewards for the caskets themselves. So you can see we've got a couple of things here. We've got minimum reward rolls for each casket is 3 and 6 for max. So what this will do is it'll pick a number between 3 and 6, and it will give you it'll roll that many times. We can see the items themselves. We've got the scrap minimum maximum values. This is the weight for how likely this particular item is to roll. Same thing for sulfur, stones, diesel barrels, blah blah blah. So these are the items. Then we've also got commands. These are also weighted as well. So if we want, this is broken up into two sections. This is the rolled loot, and then they've got the guaranteed loot. This is what the player is given as a guarantee for opening up a casket. So I should clearly define that. So we've got commands, which are associated with economics. So we can see economics rewards, deposit ID 200, RP add 200. So this technically works with server rewards. It'll work with pretty much any currency that has a command to add a certain amount of it to the player's balance. So shoppy stock, all that sort of thing. So and the skin ID is effectively the item that represents that when they open a casket. So you saw when I opened the casket before, there was a little cash icon. This skin ID is that little cash icon, so it represents what that is. And the UI amount is, the amount that the player is going to be receiving. So whatever you're putting in here, you just put into here as well. So guaranteed loot table is basically items and commands that are guaranteed to receive from the clue, regardless of how many you've got up here. So this is how many get rolled from this table. And then you've also got your guaranteed loot. So let's just say, for example, you hit the max and you get six stacks of economic dollars. If you've also got economic dollars on here as well, it's going to add those on top of whatever the players received from this one. So this is where you can add, like, you know, guaranteed item perks rolls, or some item perks, you know, epic scrap, so epic loot, epic scrap, or, you know, whatever you want to do. Be quite creative. It supports all of the big ones like skin ID, item ID. It supports item.tech. Sorry, the actual items themselves support item.text, display name, skin ID, short name, all the major things, and the commands themselves. If you wanted to, you know, give scrap a currency, blah blah blah, you can. There's a couple ways you can run it. The reward casket skin ID. This is the ID, obviously, for the icon for the reward casket, and this is the name. And then the final one here is pop-up settings. So this is a little banner that appears at the top whenever a player receives a clue, receives a reward casket, or gets the next step of the clue. It's the time that the banner appears for, the banner color, the fade in time, fade out time, and the font size on the banner. The contents of the banner are customizable through Lang. That's it. That's pretty much all there is. I feel like I've been talking for an hour. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Yeah. Otherwise, I have a bit of a nostalgia for this one, so I really hope you guys enjoy it. And all the best.